you're in that same vein at the moment. Conceptually, what might some of these systems look like, and where does it go from there, right? Because as you can well imagine, ultimately this is going through detailed design, on to construction, and other parts of today's presentation. So I'm finishing up the segment on schematic design. So a couple of things I wanted to do here. One, just to point out that if I zoom out far enough from that model, which is the UNLV campus, right? You see that model is placed on the face of the earth. So this Infraworks absolutely understands geography. So when Joe was changing the time of day and the day of the year, that is absolutely occurring on the globe. So if I go here and change the time of day, you'll see that time of day actually is rotating around the planet. And as is the case in summertime, you can see that the North Pole is always in sunlight, right? If I change the time of the year here, then you can see that the tilt of the earth is reflected in that. So I guess, although it's a cool thing to show, it's just something to have people understand. This is detailed information about things that we perhaps could be somewhat conceptual. What if we did this? What if we did that other stuff? But it is based on the actual location of that project on the earth and the time of day and the day of year, etc. My portion here will be focused on the civil side. In particular, we can start saying, what about underground utilities? So let's start by creating, I'm just going to drop in one of these, what it refers to as pipeline connectors. And very simply, this is amongst the easiest programs to learn. I don't know if you caught what he was doing earlier, but generally you just pick, and if you want to build a building, you pick, double pick when you're done, right? So if I want to place just one item, I'm just going to come in here and just double pick, and I've dropped in this particular object right on the surface of the road there. So if I rotate around and then unselect it and highlight it, you can see at the moment it's kind of like a manhole lid, right? So, but if I touch it, and I look at the properties of this object, I could also look underground, and it's just a manhole lid sitting on the surface. But if I say, come back in here and I say the elevational offset is minus, let's say I want it to be 8 feet deep for the moment. Just, I'll put in a -8, hit update, and that thing has now gone down 8 feet under the surface, right? So it gives me a little bit of simple to use capabilities. Now, if I wanted to create another one, it absolutely has like a copy-paste ability. I can come back over here and create another one over here. And likewise, if I touch that one, let me go back to edit mode, touch that one, there's the offset, elevational offset. Let's try there a 10-foot difference there. And as I go below ground, oops, I have to update that, go below ground, we can see that one is definitely deeper than the other, right? Very simple to use. Now, so I've gone ahead and I dropped in a couple of manholes here. And let's say I wanted to create a pipe between them. I'm going to go ahead and just tell it, let's create a pipe. I'm going to snap to that guy. And notice it just wants to jump and connect to this other guy. So I'm just going to double pick and it'll create a pipe right on the surface of the street. Right? Generally not where pipes are located, but just want to point out that that's in fact where one is. So now there's a couple of other things that make life simple. You'll notice these little, I'll refer to them as rotation horns. They look like horns to me. There's one here, there's one here. It turns out there's one at each of the 4 bounding box quadrants of that object. Additionally, there's a grip here that allows me to potentially pull that object off. There's another grip here that allows me to elevate or reduce or lift and lower, and then there's this gizmo. So I'm just going to grab the gizmo and push this down, and allow me to over here, go below ground, grab this guy, see if I'm doing the right thing here, right? And you can see now I've moved the pipe. Also, this is not a drawing. This turns out to be a SQL database. Right? And so what we can then, it allows me to do is create, as Joe had mentioned, proposals. So proposals allow me to keep track of primarily, let's say, what's in the master. And at the moment, there's a couple of structures, etc. And I can say, okay, let's create another proposal, and this I'll call it underground concept. concept, UG concept, right? And then now, whatever I add to the process will be kept in a tally in this particular window. So if I know ultimately later, timeout, we want another manhole structure, pan over here, another manhole over here, double click, another manhole over there, double click. I can ultimately grab both of those if I need to. Grab this one. Grab that edit mode here, grab that one selected, grab this one as well. I can go into the properties and adjust both of those depths again as the need may require. Maybe I want those ultimately need to create some clearance. I'm going to go down 15 feet on that and update. Right? And now we've created something over here very quickly and very easily. But by and large, I would say this is a concept. This is not detailed design. As was already discussed, being able to move this data back and forth is very important. And one of the very important mechanisms that we've created is in Infraworks, I can then create something here conceptually, and then if I get to the export, there is this file format called export IMX. And what that allowed was me to create a file that would take data from the old term infrastructure modeler, now Infraworks, and I'm going to stick to that name now, I'm not going to mention the old name, Infraworks, and take information from Infraworks, which includes surfaces, roads, pipes, utilities, or manholes, water, and things like that, and then create that IMX file, so I can come over here, put that somewhere, and grab as much, the entire model or a portion of it with a polygon or a bounding box, put that somewhere, and then come over here into Civil 3D, and then on the Insert tab, which right logically, these things are organized pretty well, on the Insert tab, I'm now able to import that IMX. So if I hover on that long enough, right, at first I get a little tooltip, and this goes towards the learning process, the learning curve. If I hover on it, I get a tooltip, and then it expands, and it tells me I can import via the IMX file, I can import from Infraworks data that it creates, and it tells me exactly what type of data is possible. So if you look at the bottom paragraph there, it says terrain, coverage areas, water areas, pipes, road data, etc., into Civil 3D. So again, this is a purpose-built file format to bring data this way from Infraworks. And in its first iteration a couple of years ago, it was actually on the Output tab created originally, there's Output to IMX. So again, if I hover on that, then it expands, gives me a little bit more information. This says exports to the IMX file format to allow the data from here to go into Infraworks. So now we have this bi-directional file format that allows Civil 3D and Infraworks to interact directly. So here, this is exactly what I did. I brought in what was created in Infraworks. So if I hover on this or touch this surface, this is a terrain. If I touch it, it tells me exactly what it is, right? That's a tin surface. And then it says AIM, Autodesk Infrastructure Modeler Existing Ground. So it came via the IMX file format from Infraworks into here, right? Or, let's see, if I touch this one, it tells me it's an alignment, just happens to be called alignment number 2. And this also highlights, for those of you that perhaps have not seen some of our products of late, and particularly Civil 3D, I don't have to know where all of the commands are, like I used to have to know in the past. If I want to do a command that pertains to creating, let's say, a spot elevation on a surface, I just touch the surface, right? That tells me, and notice if I unselect it, I have a certain set of ribbons up there, the last one being Express Tools. As I touch this, there's another one that's created. It tells me I've touched the tin surface, it tells me its name, and then suddenly all of these are the commands that pertain to that tin surface. So things like labeling and tables are at this end, and modifications generally in the middle. I can do some analysis over here, and then I can create ultimately some surface tools, and then the launch pad. If I touch an alignment, you'll notice the exact same order. Labels and tables, there's the modification, there's the analysis, and the launch pad, right? But as they pertain to alignments. So I don't have to know where all the commands are, and I'll just do something very quickly. I'll add a label, let's say a spot elevation label, right there, and it tells me that at that location I'm at elevation 2024. Or if I'm over here, I'm at 2027. If I'm at over here, you can well imagine I'm going downhill, right? I'm at 2018. Or if I grab this, and this is part of the dynamic nature of Civil 3D, if I move that over there, that changed from 218 to 220 because it understands where it is surface and dynamically updates. And that's the nature of using tools that are more intelligent, right? These are not text. This is not lines or polylines that represent the contours of the surface. That's an actual surface. That's an actual label to the surface that understands. If I were to move that off of the surface, it would become question marks. Like, I don't know what elevation's out there. There's no surface there for me to tell you, right? So along those lines, let me collapse this down here a little bit, give myself more space. If I were to then want to create, I go to the Home tab where it allows me to create lots of things. If I wanted to create a new pipe network, I tell it I wish to go into that area. I tell it, I could give it a name. I could accept the default name if I wanted to, but maybe we wanted to create, I'll call it sanitary sewer, network number 02, let's say. And then I have parts lists that are already created for the creation of sanitary sewer versus storm sewer versus whatever type of system I wanted to create. So let's use the sanitary set. Which surface am I going to tie to? The existing ground. I'll hit OK, and then I have the ability to pick parts. What type of, in this case, manhole structures? What type of pipes do I want to use? And then start creating. Am I going to be drawing downhill? Am I going to be drawing uphill? Start creating these objects, and I can say, okay, from there to there to there. Maybe I want to deviate and come around this way and hit a return to get out of the command. And by and large, it looks like I've added a circle with an S that's connected with a line to another circle with an S, connected with another line to another similar object, right? But these are intelligent objects that are referred to as having styles. And in this case, let me close that, in 3D, in 2D, in plan view, that's exactly intended to look like that. Now, I did not mention, I meant to do this earlier, there is a command called geomap, which ties us to, I think there was a question about services, GIS. We had a GIS person. And there is one service now that's being provided. It's a link to BIM maps. So as long as my drawing has a coordinate system, and I'm drawing in the right area, it will go out to the BIM maps and always load the best resolution imagery for that particular location. So you see, as I zoomed out, it added more information.
And that functionality is in base AutoCAD?
Base AutoCAD, Map 3D, Civil 3D. So anyone that wishes to can choose to assign a coordinate system. So AutoCAD, basic AutoCAD now, can have a coordinate system assigned to it, and then we can create information now in a more geo-referenced way. I'm going to turn that off, by the way. So we'll go back into the geomap command, turn that off, and then very quickly I'm going to rotate my drawing around now in 3D. And now you'll see that those same exact objects that were the S and a singular line were told to appear that way via styles, but they are in fact, if I change this to conceptual mode and I get to below the surface, as I look at this from below, pipes. There they are. Right? So those objects that, again, S's and lines are in fact the actual 3D object that I'm trying to design. And whether I change them here in the model view itself, or I change them in a section view, or I change them in a profile view, I'm intelligently interacting with that object, and then I can come back to the Output tab, do a detailed design of this thing, create an IMX file format, and then push that back into Infraworks, which I'm going to come back to in just a few short minutes. So the idea then is I can do conceptual here. I can create an IMX file, push it into my detailed design software. Oops, just launched Revit, didn't mean to do that. And then come into my detailed design software, expand that or make it more detailed, and then push it back into my conceptualization software or into some of the other software which we'll talk about before the end of the day. Joe had mentioned about this concept of proposals, right? So right now, as I bring this up, I'm on a concept that I call UG concept, or underground concept. And if I go back to the master, this was as it existed originally. So master we can consider to be existing condition. This is all the information that we know exists, and there was no underground, well, that one probably created something there. Right? But it only has a certain amount of data, and certainly there is the expectation that a new building is going to come over here. So if I create a proposal, and I did one that's called, I called it Proposed University Innovation Center, and I bring up that proposal, and then it changes with everything that was added for that proposal. Now, I could create a copy of this by hitting that green to create a new proposal, give it a name, and maybe put the road on this side and the building on the other side, right? Someone should make that decision. I'm offering either or. So proposals allow me to create those conceptualizations. But let's say I wish to communicate to someone that where we are and something along those lines. So, very quickly, creating a video. We go to the Present tab. We tell it we want to create a storyboard. The storyboard, I already have one there, so let me delete that one, I suppose. Delete that storyboard. I'm going to create a new storyboard. And right here where we are, I want that to be my first keyframe, which is, okay, I'm going to create a new animation path, camera path. Create a new camera path. So it captured right where we're standing or looking at it, and it created our first keyframe, and then we want to just set a speed. And let's say we're going to fly over this really quickly, and I'll exaggerate the speed a little bit just for the sake of time. Maybe we're going to fly over this at 300 miles an hour, right? That's my first frame. So then we want to come over here down to this area, and maybe I want to look at it from right here, and I say create a keyframe, and then maybe I want to come over here and then look at it from down low, right there, and then I'll create a keyframe, and it's figured out based on 300 miles an hour how much time would it take to get from one location to the next and that view and the next. And then I hit play, and it starts back here, and it is going at 300 miles an hour towards my next view, which is here, and then over to here, and lands, stops, right? So we can change the speeds. I can make it walking and driving, zoom in from the globe, whatever I want, and then ultimately I hit this little red button here at the end, which, pardon me, if I hover on it, says export the current storyboard to a video. So I hit that, tell it what am I going to create, Windows Media File, let's put it on my desktop so that I can find it quickly, save that, it already exists, video, that's fine, replace it, use the current screen resolution, which is going to be this wide screen, and hit record. It's that simple, right, to create a video. I don't have to be very technical, I just have to know what perspective I want and just be able to maneuver there and pick one button that says add the keyframe. It figures out everything in between, and then in this case makes that video. Now maybe I want to also additionally send someone a nice image from, let's say, right here, right? Likewise on the same tab, present, it says create a snapshot. Where am I going to place it? I'm going to place it on my desktop. It's called snapshot number 2. I'll hit save. There's my snapshot that I just created, right? And my video should be in that same folder. Video. Now, that's something I can send to someone. Created in just a matter of seconds. So every organization has that capability of creating one, models easy, pictures, videos, relatively easy, and then in just a bit, we're going to talk about how to take that even to another level, but with extreme simplicity. So I'll come back to that in my next segment, I believe. And Infraworks, so now just to finish the story, I'm able to take from Infraworks, I can come over here to the Manage tab, Collaborate tab. I can publish things, so I can create as much or as little as he was talking about, where Joe published to the cloud. There's also the the mobile version, which allows me to come in here to that exact same model and look at it as much or as little as I want. And lastly, along those lines, if I was out on the site, which we're a little ways away from that, but I can turn on the orientation so that, one, notice the augmented reality there? I can't turn it on because it's grayed out right there. It says position and orientation. But if I were out on the site and I turn on the camera, right, I can superimpose that building, which doesn't exist, into the environment where we're actually standing. So it would probably be lower, 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 like this. And then I could take a come on, catch up. Take a second. I can take a virtual tour around that building. Let me change that orientation again. Take a virtual tour and walk around that building, right, and see it in context of the video of what's actually out there. Now, additionally, we created underground utilities. If I turn off the ground layer, I can be looking at those manhole structures and that pipe underground as I'm walking around. Right. So the ability to take this data, pardon me, I'll turn that all off, take this data far beyond the design, far beyond our four walls, take it out into the field, and then begin to utilize it in new and creative ways. That's where the technology, that's what the technology is capable of.